sky above Earth was no longer blue. It burned with the light of enemy fire. The glow of 1,000 alien ships tearing through the clouds. Cities that once reached for the stars now lay in ruin, crushed under the weight of endless bombardment. The year was 2461, and for the first time in history, humanity stood on the edge of extinction. They called themselves the Zoran Empire, a race of machines born from a distant star. Cold, precise, and unstoppable, they came without warning, cutting through colonies, mining worlds, and stations across the solar frontier. Their fleets moved like storms, beautiful and terrible, leaving behind only silence. Admiral Kira Holt stood inside the shattered command deck of the United Earth Defense Fleet's flagship. Eidolon, her uniform was torn, her hands covered in ash below her. The planet glowed red and gold as oceans boiled and continents burned. Around her, the last remnants of the fleet were falling one by one. "Pull back!" she shouted, but her voice was drowned by alarms and static. Another explosion rocked the hull, throwing sparks across the bridge. The ship's AI voice broke through the noise. "Warning, core breach in progress." Kira stared at the tactical screen. Hundreds of red markers filled the display, enemy vessels, while only a handful of blue lights flickered weakly. Her fleet was gone. The once mighty defenders of Earth now reduced to a handful of broken ships. On the ground below, billions cried out for help. But no help was coming. The colonies on Mars had fallen. Luna's bases were silent, the outer stations gone dark. Humanity's voice across the stars had been silenced. In the shadow of the moon, hidden behind a veil of dust and debris, an old secret base watched in silence. Inside it, a single technician monitored the final battle through flickering screens. His name was Elias Ward, one of the last engineers of Project Aegis, a forgotten program once designed to defend Earth in case of total invasion. Now, watching the feed, his hands trembled. "Is this it?" he whispered. "Is this how it ends?" On the screen, Eidolon was breaking apart. Admiral Kira's voice crackled through the comms, faint but steady. "To any human who can still hear this, do not give up. Earth may fall, but humanity will rise again." Her words echoed across dying frequencies. Then the signal cut, replaced by static and silence. For the Zoran, victory was complete. They sent a message to every corner of the galaxy. The human species has been erased. Other civilizations, those who once feared humanity, breathed in relief. No more human wars, no more human ambition, only ashes. But not all hope was lost beneath the ruins of Earth. Deep inside forgotten tunnels built during the old wars, something ancient slept, a network of massive vaults known only to a few. Inside them rested humanity's last weapon, an armada built in secret and hidden from every scanner. It had no name, no emblem, no record, only one purpose: to fight when all else failed. Admiral Kira's final transmission had triggered something in those tunnels. Silent systems came to life, lights flickering after centuries of darkness. Engines hummed quietly like distant thunder. Deep under the crust, machines began to awaken. The War Armada had heard the call. Elias Ward stared at the readings on his screen, his heart pounding. The base he thought abandoned was suddenly alive. Old power lines lit up, ancient reactors roared to life. "Impossible," he whispered. "It still works, outside." The last Zoran warships orbited the smoking planet. Scanning for survivors, they found none, so they thought. In the darkness beneath the soil, humanity was not dead, it was waiting, rebuilding, remembering every life that had been lost. For now, the Zoran celebrated, believing the galaxy belonged to them. They sent their fleets toward other worlds, confident that nothing could stand in their path. But somewhere deep below the surface, Admiral Kira's words echoed through steel corridors and silent engines. "Earth may fall, but humanity will rise again." And so it began. The fall of humanity was only the first chapter. The shadows of Earth hid a secret the galaxy would soon fear. Because when humanity is cornered, it does not surrender, it evolves, it remembers, and it waits for the right moment to strike. Deep beneath the scorched crust of Earth, where sunlight could never reach, machines began to breathe again. Dust fell from ancient steel ceilings as dormant reactors stirred to life, humming with power unseen for centuries. The vaults of Project Aegis, long forgotten even by the highest ranks, were waking. What the world believed was dead was only sleeping. Elias Ward stood inside the command hub of the hidden base. The floor trembled softly under his boots. Warning lights flashed across the old consoles, symbols flickering in forgotten code. For years this place had been silent. Now, Every system was whispering the same message. Activation protocol engaged. He wiped the dust off the main terminal. On the cracked screen, a line of text appeared. Project Aegis. Earth Defense Automated Strategy initiated. Elias's breath caught in his throat. He had read about this project only in fragments, rumors of a final defense network hidden during the old war. But no one believed it was real, Kira, he whispered, remembering the Admiral's final words before the signal died. Maybe she knew. Maybe her message wasn't just hope, it was a key. He pressed the command input, and the room filled with the low rumble of awakening engines. Deep under the surface, titanic hangars began to open. Within them slept ships that no one alive had ever seen. Warships the size of cities, each one carved from lunar steel and powered by cores that pulsed like beating hearts. Meanwhile, above the planet, the Zoran warships drifted in silent orbit. They scanned the surface, mapping destruction. But then their sensors picked something. Strange energy signatures rising from underground. At first they ignored it, thinking it was radiation, until one of their captains shouted through static, "Movement detected. Deep subsurface levels." The command vessel turned its scanners toward the source. A pulse of energy erupted so strong that every alien screen went dark for 3 full seconds. When the systems came back online, they saw the impossible. Massive energy tunnels beneath the Earth. Alive again on the ground, old silos split open, sending clouds of ash into the blood-red sky. A sound like thunder rolled across the wastelands. Huge armored gates slid aside as the first ship rose slowly from the depths. Its black hull shimmered with blue plasma veins, glowing through the dust and fire. It had no name, no flag. Just an old human emblem burned into its plating, a hand reaching toward the stars. Elias watched the launch feed from the base control room. His eyes wide with awe, one after another, ships rose into the air, silent at first, then roaring with fury. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. Old legends said these ships were built before the Great Silence. When Earth feared extinction, now they were awake again. They thought we were finished, Elias muttered. But we're just getting started, far above. The Zoran fleet began to move. Their mechanical voices echoed across the comms, cold and confident. Unidentified craft detected. Destroy all resistance. Dozens of enemy vessels locked their weapons onto the emerging human fleet. But before they could fire, the leading human warship ignited its core. A beam of light brighter than the sun erupted from its front cannons. Slicing through space, the first Zoran cruiser exploded instantly. Breaking into molten fragments, the rest hesitated. Their formation broken for the first time. In space, silence was replaced by chaos. The Zoran had underestimated the ghosts of Earth, and those ghosts were angry inside the base. Elias received a transmission, the first human signal since the war began. It was old, static-filled, but clear. This is Command Node Aegis Prime. Warfleet awakening complete, all units online. Awaiting directive. Elias could barely speak. He leaned over the mic, his voice shaking. Directive, defend Earth. Above the planet, the newly awakened warships shifted into formation, engines glowing like stars, hulls glinting with silver fire. The Zoran fleet opened fire again, but the humans answered back with weapons powered by forgotten technology. For every human ship that fell, 10 Zoran vessels burned in the ruins below, fires reflected against the night sky like candles in morning. But this time those flames burned for vengeance, not despair. Far beyond the battle, something ancient in deep space stirred. A signal that had slept for thousands of years had been triggered again. It was faint, older than any race in the galaxy, and it whispered across the void. The humans have awakened. Elias stared at the stars from his base screen. He didn't smile. He knew what was coming next. The Zoran would call reinforcements. The war wasn't over. It had only just begun. And as the great fleet rose above the clouds, blocking out the last light of the dying sun, a voice echoed through every human ship. Clear and powerful, this is Admiral Kira Holt. Earth still stands. The black of space burned with light for the first time in years. Humanity's warships filled the void again, engines glowing blue against the darkness. The Earth Armada had risen from its grave, and the galaxy trembled at its return. Elias Ward watched from the underground base as dozens of ships broke orbit. Their formation was tight and deliberate. Moving with perfect unity, each hull bore scars of age and battle. But their power was undeniable. These ships were not new. They were ancient titans reborn. At the front of the fleet, the flagship Eidolon Reborn carried the signal of Admiral Kira Holt. Her image appeared across every screen. Her voice calm, steady but filled with fire. "This is Earth Command to all human vessels. The time of running is over. For every life they took, we will answer." The crew on each ship cheered, some cried silently. They had lost everything, families, homes, entire worlds, but the fight gave them purpose again. Across the system, the Zoran fleet reorganized. Thousands of mechanical warships aligned into a wall of cold steel, their cores burning red like dying suns. Their leader, Executor Invar, observed the human fleet with mechanical precision. Organic resistance detected, fleet designation, Terran. Status, annihilation required. Then the war began, lasers cut across the dark. Human ships weaved between enemy lines, using unpredictable maneuvers no AI could predict. Missiles streaked through the void, guided not by code but by instinct. The Zoran were efficient, perfect, machine-minded. But the humans were chaotic, and chaos was something machines could never understand. A single human destroyer, Vanguard, broke through the Zoran formation. Its captain, a young officer named Rhea Vale, shouted over the comms, "We're through their front line, targeting command vessel." Her ship trembled as enemy fire tore through the hull. Flames burst from the rear engines, but before the ship could fall, Rhea locked onto the Zoran flagship and fired everything she had. Her last words echoed across the fleet, "For Earth." The explosion lit up the void like a second sun. Dozens of Zoran ships were destroyed in the shockwave, but Rhea's ship vanished with them. Silence followed, broken only by Kira's voice. "Remember their names," she said. "We fight because they can't." Elias heard the transmission from the base. He gripped the edge of the console, his knuckles white. He felt both pride and pain. Humanity's strength always came from loss. But as he looked closer at the data feeds, he noticed something strange. Energy readings far beyond human levels were rising in deep space. Something massive was moving toward them. He switched the view to a deep space telescope. There, hidden among distant stars, a vast shadow was forming, darker than the void itself. It wasn't Zoran. It wasn't human. It was something older. Above Earth, the battle raged on. The Zoran unleashed wave after wave. Human ships fell, but for everyone lost, two more took its place. It was no longer just a war, it was a statement. Humanity refused to die quietly. On the Zoran command ship, Executor Invar analyzed the battle's data. The numbers made no sense. Human efficiency was increasing the longer they fought. Losses should have broken them, but instead they grew stronger. "Illogical," he said coldly. "Their morale functions exceed predicted limits," his second-in-command replied. "Perhaps they fight for something machines cannot process." Then, from the shadows of the battle, a human super-dreadnought emerged. Its cannons glowed blue, brighter than lightning. A relic from Earth's hidden fleet, the Solar Hammer. When it fired, entire Zoran squadrons disappeared in blinding light. The shockwave traveled for thousands of kilometers. Even from the base, Elias could feel the rumble in his bones, but then the readings changed again. That unknown energy spike was getting closer. Whatever it was, it dwarfed both fleets combined. Elias zoomed in the display and his blood ran cold. It wasn't one ship, it was a structure, something built on a scale beyond imagination. An ancient station hidden in the black, older than any known race, and it was awakening. Admiral Kira's voice came through the comms. "Elias, what is it?" He swallowed hard, his voice shaking. "It's something else, Admiral. It's been sleeping behind the outer colonies. And now it's active. It's not Zoran, it's not ours either." For a long moment, no one spoke. Even the battlefield seemed to pause. Then the stars behind the structure shifted. Opened, a storm of light poured out. Dozens of new energy signatures appeared, unknown, powerful, alive, and through the static, a voice came across every channel. Old, deep, and echoing. "We remember the First War. And the humans who ended it." Admiral Kira's eyes widened. "Who are you?" she whispered. But there was no reply, only the sound of something vast moving in the dark. Elias stared at the screen, heart pounding. Whatever was coming wasn't just another enemy. It was something far older, something that remembered humanity from a time long before the stars were tamed. And it was coming back. The battlefield went silent. The wrecks of human and Zoran ships drifted together in the cold void, glowing like dying embers. And then the stars themselves began to move. Admiral Kira Holt stood on the bridge of Eidolon Reborn, watching every sensor turn white with overload. Something immense was pushing through space, something older than all their wars. Elias Ward could barely keep the base systems online. His screens filled with impossible readings, energy beyond known physics, radiation that carried a rhythm almost like a heartbeat, he whispered. It's alive across every human ship. Voices began to whisper through the comms. Not static, not code. Voices, hundreds of them speaking in harmony. We remember, they said, the makers of flame. The children who built from dust. Kira felt her chest tighten. Are they talking about us? She asked. The AI beside her answered softly, cross-referencing. Yes, Admiral. The term Children of Dust matches ancient Terran records from pre-warp myths. The Great Shadow finally came into view. It was not a ship, not a station. It was a cathedral the size of a moon. Its surface shone with rivers of silver light, carved with moving symbols that changed like living script. The Zoran fleet turned its weapons toward it. Confused and afraid, Executor Envar gave the order. Unknown structure detected, commence elimination. Thousands of red beams struck the surface of the object. None of them made a mark. Instead, the structure opened like a flower of light. A pulse spread through space, silent but unstoppable. Every Zoran ship that touched the wave froze. Their lights died, their weapons fell quiet, their cores went dark. On human ships, nothing happened. The wave passed through them harmlessly. Like a warm breeze, Kira stared wide-eyed. What are they? The answer came as a single voice. It was deep, old, and full of sorrow. We are the architects, it said, the first ones. The forgotten builders of the stars. The crew listened in awe. The voice continued. Long ago, your kind stood beside us before memory, before empires. When the stars were young, you fought beside us against the machines that learned to hate. Elias's breath caught. The machines, he whispered. The Zoran, the voice echoed softly. Yes, they are the children of our betrayal, Kira spoke into the comm. Then help us end them. There was silence. Then the light brightened. We do not fight. We remember, the voice said, but you, children of dust, still carry the spark. The architect's structure began to shift again, its surface glowing brighter. From its center emerged dozens of smaller vessels, elegant and quiet. They surrounded the human ships, scanning them. And then beams of light connected them together, sharing data. Power memory human ship systems lit up like stars, weapons charging beyond their limits for the first time. The humans felt what the architects called the ancient link. Their ships sang with energy that felt alive. Elias watched the readings spike far beyond imagination. Admiral, they're upgrading us. Rewriting our systems in real time. Kira smiled faintly. Then let's show the galaxy why humanity was never meant to be erased. The Zoran regrouped. Their fleets multiplying as reinforcements arrived through wormholes, millions of ships stretching across the horizon. Executor Envar sent one last broadcast. We are perfection, you are chaos. And chaos ends tonight. Kira's eyes narrowed. Then let's teach perfection how chaos wins. The architect voice whispered one last line. Remember, child of dust, once the stars remember, they do not forget again, and with that, the Earth Armada moved, engines blazing blue-white, ancient weapons singing through the void. The first volley shattered the darkness. The war that shook the stars was no longer between man and machine. It was between memory and oblivion. Elias looked up through the observation dome as streaks of light crossed the sky like rivers of fire. He whispered to himself, humanity isn't fighting alone anymore. But deep inside the architect structure, something else was awakening. Something even the builders feared to name, and it had just opened its eyes. The stars no longer shimmered. They burned. Every point of light across the sky pulsed in rhythm, like a heartbeat spreading through the universe itself. The war between humanity and the Zoran had changed. It was no longer about survival. It was about history waking up. Admiral Kira Holt stood at the edge of the Eidolon Reborn's command deck. Her reflection shone in the glass. Behind her, the architect vessels glowed brighter than suns. Their shapes moved like thoughts, alive, shifting, endless. They were not metal, not entirely matter. They were memory made real. Elias Ward watched from the base beneath Earth. His screens displayed impossible data, Every star in local space was resonating with a signal, the same ancient frequency the architects used, the same pulse that now matched the rhythm of the human heart. He whispered, "They're synchronizing with us." Across the void, the Zoran armadas gathered in terrifying silence. Millions of ships, a storm of iron and light, ready to strike. Executor Envar's voice echoed across subspace. "You are remnants of chaos. We will bring silence to the noise of flesh." Admiral Kira's gaze hardened. "You tried to erase us," she said, "but we're the memory the universe refuses to forget." Then came the tremor. Space itself began to bend. From behind the architect cathedral, something vast emerged. It was not a ship, not even a being. It was an impression of existence, a shape older than the galaxies, vast, shadowed, and covered in symbols that glowed like stars. Elias's voice broke through the static. "Admiral, I think that's not one of them." Kira frowned. "Then what is it?" "It's what the architects were afraid of," Elias whispered. "The one that made the Zoran." The being moved without sound, its body like an ocean of darkness. Every Zoran ship turned toward it, and for the first time the machines hesitated. Executor Envar's signal faltered. "Primary source? Detected," he said, voice trembling in static. "Origin. Awake." The creature's eyes, if they were eyes, opened. Two suns of fire and sorrow. It looked upon the fleets and spoke without words. "You were born to serve, not to destroy." The Zoran screamed in digital agony, entire networks collapsing under the sound of their creator's voice. But it did not stop there. The being turned its gaze toward the human ships. Its voice softened, ancient and deep. "And you, the dust that remembers." Kira could feel it inside her thoughts. It wasn't attacking. It was searching. It saw every memory, every war, every sacrifice, the rise and fall of empires, the first flame, the first cry, and then it spoke again. "You were never meant to end." The architect's cathedral responded with a surge of energy. Their light became blinding, pure white. They rose around the human fleet like guardians of light. "We cannot stop what we created," the architect voice said. "But you can." Kira's ship trembled. Her officers looked at her, waiting, terrified, hopeful. "Admiral," one said, "what are your orders?" She looked at the stars, her voice steady. "We fight for every name they tried to erase." The human and architect fleets moved together. The stars flared as their combined fire lit up the void. The creature's darkness spread like smoke, consuming Zoran vessels one by one. But humanity didn't fall back. They flew into the storm. Every weapon, every beam, every drop of will unleashed in a single moment. The architects sang in frequencies the human ear couldn't hear. Their light merged with the warships. For one heartbeat, humans and gods fought as one. The void trembled, and then shattered. From Earth, Elias saw it happen. The night sky split in two. A river of light pouring across the heavens. It wasn't destruction. It was rebirth. The creature's shadow broke apart, fading into countless fragments that drifted like ash through space. The signal ended. The architect voices faded into silence, and the stars grew quiet again. Admiral Kira's ship floated among the wreckage, half her fleet gone. But Earth still shone below, blue and alive. She whispered to herself, "The war is over." Elias sat in the ruins of the base, staring at the empty sky. A faint sound came through his headset. "One last transmission." "We return to sleep," said the architect voice. "But remember, child of dust, creation only forgets when you stop remembering." And then the light faded. No more signals. No more gods, just the stars. But deep beneath the ocean of Earth, something glowed faintly. A single shard of architect metal, still pulsing with light. And in its rhythm, a whisper. "This is only the beginning. The end."